Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. In ancient Greece, it was considered a curse to tell someone, may you live in interesting times.
Oh God.
And I would like to say that we are living in some very interesting times right now. And I don't want to make light of that. I'm glad that everyone's taking this seriously. I'm glad that, my lifestyle has become ubiquitous. Semi-quarantine, introverting. This is the life for me.
We already work from home all the time. And I got to tell you guys, it's great. And welcome to the work from home world.
It's not great when you don't have access to toilet paper and you have to go to multiple grocery stores to find basic things.
Okay, that part is crazy, though.
When you're worried about your family who works in the healthcare system.
Yes, that's scary.
And, your elderly grandparents. We all can check some or all of these boxes.
Yes.
And so because of the fact that the world is kind of topsy-turvy right now, there is so much uncertainty. There's a lot of very founded fear. A lot of fear is not often founded, and this is totally understandable. If you're freaking out a little bit, I mean, I am too. We run a small business. Coaching is not a necessity the way that
groceries are right
is
now.
A necessity, and wiping your butt is a necessity to a degree.
But can I put out a PSA about that?
Don't hoard
we don't
toilet paper.
all need that much toilet paper. Save some for the rest of us.
We've got enough. But I'm being very conservative with my toilet paper use.
We're rationing.
So it's understandable if you're freaking out and you're not sure of what's happening with your job. Some of you might have job security and some of you might not. I'm one of those people who doesn't have job security either. And I get it.
Just talking to a woman this morning who works in events. And she said, my industry is crumbling around me right now because everything that I do is being canceled.
Right.
And so she, among probably a lot of us, are starting to do some serious introspection and potentially course correcting and changing up of plans because we're in a wild new world.
Who knows?
Right.
Now. And we don't. And I think one of the scarier things is most people can tolerate anything if they know how long it's going to last. And I think that's what's particularly unsettling is that you never know how something like this is going to go and how long it's going to last. We could all be back to normal in a month, or we could be in the same situation 2 or 3 months from now.
Right. We do know that this is temporary. This is not a whole new way of operating in the world.
No.
Because we will get this under control.
We will get back to normal.
As a country, as a world. But in the meantime, it's going to be a little
and the
tumultuous.
repercussions might be longer lasting than when everything gets back to normal. Doesn't mean the economy will be back to normal. Doesn't mean people's jobs will be back to normal. So I understand the uncertainty and the fear. And so Kristen and I talked about, is this the right time to do coaching enrollment? Because you've heard us talking about the fact that today's the day. We were planning to open up, enrollment for one-on-one coaching. And again, it doesn't feel like a good time to do anything. So because no one knows what to do. But we paused for a minute, and for multiple reasons. One, because we're running a business, and so it doesn't necessarily benefit us to say we're shutting this down. A, because that's not healthy for us, but B, it's not necessary because this might be an ideal time for some of you to work through your fear and your insecurities and your life plan, which may or may not have just been completely upended. Some of you, this won't be the right time, and that's totally fine. Some of you, this might have actually opened up a totally different possibility that you weren't considering until now. And it might be the right time because of that.
Yeah, I think this could be one of the best times, actually, to get coaching, for some of you at least, because this is a time where we are all, literally as a world, we are being asked to go inward, go into our homes, go inward. And you're going to have a lot of introspection that happens in that. And you're going to have a lot of reconsidering possibilities. We're all pressing the pause button. And how many times in our lives are we forced to press the pause button? Not very often. Very often you just go through your normal routine. It's the same old, and you don't have enough time or bandwidth to be able to take a pause and say, is this even what I want? What do I want instead? Where else could I be going? And right now, we're all collectively taking a pause.
Yeah.
And so I think for some of you, this is probably already where your mind is. Considering possibilities, looking inward, questioning what you've been doing or what you want to be doing. And so if that's where you are, and frankly, if you have more time on your hands because you're home and your schedule is opening up a lot.
All that time you spent commuting could now be spent doing other things for yourself.
Then for some of you, I think this might be the right time. So we didn't want to take that opportunity away from you if you're actually wanting it more now because of this.
It's not our job to decide when the right time for coaching is for people. That's your job. So you tell us if this is the right time for you.
And it's very safe because it's over the phone. You don't have to touch anyone.
Right. Our business works well in that we can do this completely virtually. And that's always
social
how
distancing
it has been.
Built into coaching.
Totally built into coaching. So, so we're going to open it up still. And, some people you'll have to this will be totally the wrong time. Even if you were maybe considering doing it, it might totally have changed your plans. And that's fine. And for some of you, it might actually, have not been something you were considering until now. And that's also fine. So whoever feels like this is the right thing for them, everything we've been saying is still true. We're going to open it up now until Tuesday the 31st, which means that between now and then, if you go to the link in the episode notes and you click the form to talk to us, we'll get on the phone and we'll figure out, is this the right fit for you? You don't have to be 100% sure that this is exactly, what you want to do, but you have to be serious enough to want to have a real conversation about it. And you have to have the idea in mind of wanting to start within the next, I would say 4 to 6 weeks is a realistic time frame.
Yep. I also just want to remind, this is not just for new people. For those of you who maybe worked with us before, but you were on a certain path, and now you're like, oh man, this path maybe is going a different direction than I thought. We'd love to welcome you back because this might be a good time to do some.
Always welcome former clients.
Yeah, and I just want to throw that out there too because we're open to anyone who's looking for some support right now. Even if you've gotten some before.
15 to 20 people is the kind of number we're capping it at, which is not a lot. I have no idea if people will be more interested in coaching now than ever or less interested in coaching now than ever. But my limit is still the same, which is I can't really coach more than, 10 people at a time without crumbling.
I feel like it's our job to just be here for the people who need it right now.
Yeah.
And completely give you permission to put this on pause if you need it to be on pause.
Glennon Doyle in Love Warrior talks about the fact that the word crisis, I think in Hebrew, I'm not totally sure, it could be Latin. The root of the word means to sift. And so crisis, in times of crisis, you start sifting your life and you start kind of, it becomes clear what you want and what your priorities are. And I think that coaching, transitions are often the time that people find their way into coaching. And crises are just big transitions, like world transitions, cultural transitions, that then kind of trickle down and become personal transitions. So, it's always been our job to walk people through transition, through existential crisis, through asking the big questions and figuring out what you want your life to be and what direction you want it to go in. And
it's just that usually that's a very personal journey. And now it's both a personal journey and a global journey that we're all going on together right now.
So we're still here for you like we've always been. We will keep being here. So yes, if you want to talk to us, we'd love to talk to you. And we'll be scheduling these calls over the next few weeks. You don't have to necessarily get started right away. If you chat with us right away and then you want to get started 3 or 4 weeks later, that's also fine. But let's just talk if you're serious about it. So fill out that form. Let us know what's up with you. And you have until the 31st to do that. And then we probably will do this again in the summer, maybe late June is what I'm thinking.
We're hoping life is a lot calmer for all of us in the summer.
I hope so. So we're right there with you. riding the waves of uncertainty and change and making sure we have enough provisions to get by and freaking out at every little twinge of, today I've been like, I kind of feel like I need to cough and I've been freaking out all day about it, but I'm fine.
I think you're fine.
I've taken my temperature multiple times. I'm fine. It's fine. We're all going to be fine. Okay, so switching gears here and transitioning to side chatting.
So today's topic is something that I know Rachel and I talk about a lot with our clients.
All the time.
All the time with our clients. But recently, my client, Carla, shout out to Carla, was like, why don't you do a podcast episode about this? This is a really helpful thing to consider. And I was like, I talk about it enough. Why don't we talk about it in mass? So the whole topic
is in mass, and my mind immediately went to Catholic Church, and I'm not Catholic.
You don't have to, can you talk in mass?
No, I feel like you definitely can't talk about dating and job searching in mass.
You're supposed to be quiet and reverent.
You could pray about it.
Sure. You can talk to God about it.
Yeah, sure.
But no, en masse into the masses.
E-N space M-A-S-S-E.
Yes.
En masse. I don't know French, but that was my guess.
So I really want us to get into all of the ways that job searching is like dating. And vice versa, and how
not so much vice versa, but
more so
job searching as dating. We might flip it a couple of times.
And how to approach it if you are using that mentality.
Yeah, because if you use that mentality, it helps a lot. That's the point of this episode, that a lot of us get very hung up on job searching and we treat it like it's a different kind of entity, but it's not. It's actually it has almost every similarity with dating. And I think when you look at it like that, all of a sudden it becomes easier. And it becomes a lot more clear. Oh, okay, that's what I should do. Job searching gets us tripped up on ourselves for some reason. We'll get into why. I have lots of thoughts about why.
One of the first things that I want to talk about is the intention that you come to, or the energy really that you come to job searching with, is going to really influence how it goes and what you end up with, just as it does when you're dating. So if you come into job searching and you are just desperate for a new job, you are so ready to escape and you just need something different, then you're probably going to end up settling for the first thing that comes along. Same with dating. If you're like, please, please like me, love me, I'm lonely, you're probably just going to settle for the next guy or gal who comes along in your experience who may actually not be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And compromising on things that you should not be compromising on. That's going to turn into an unhealthy, resentful relationship in the long run.
One of my clients, and this is not the call out she was expecting. She's going to get credit for a story later, but I'm sorry, but I'm not going to use your name. I think you'll be okay with being called out because I already did it. So this is just a reminder of what already happened. But she emailed me and she's like, I think I need a job. She's been in business for herself for a while, but it's really hard when you're first starting out to have any sort of financial stability. And there's no shame in getting a job, part-time job, full-time job, whatever. If you need stability, you got to do what you got to do to take care of yourself. And she was like, I feel all this pressure because I don't want to go back to a job that I hate like I had last time, but I don't want to put myself in a bad place financially. And so I need, like all caps, need a job that I love like yesterday. And I said, well, brace yourself. You're not going to like my answer. I said, no, you don't need a job you love. You want a job you love. You need a job. Ooh, we don't like that. Yeah. Same as like in dating when you're like, I need a spouse. I'm like, no, you don't need a relationship. You really don't need a relationship to the degree that you need to pay for your basic survival. That's one of the main differences
yes,
between job searching and dating. But I said, if you have this huge pressured timeline on yourself, kind of like we do when we turn 30 and we're not married and we're single and when are we ever going to have kids, you start putting pressure and timelines on yourself. I need this perfect thing to happen and I need it to happen then. That is a recipe for desperation and for ending up settling for things you really didn't want, because you start to lose your ability to make good decisions when you become desperate. You lose your discernment and your clarity. And so I told her, no, what you need is something that can help you pay your bills. Now, it doesn't have to be something you hate. It can be like a 7 out of 10 instead of a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It can be a bridge job, but it doesn't actually have to be the perfect job. And if you take the pressure off of yourself to make it the next thing, the perfect thing, you create a lot more ease, and you give yourself permission and life permission to unfold the way it's supposed to. People iron grip their timelines in job searching and in dating, and it makes them crazy.
It does.
And it makes them make bad decisions.
Yes. And also that desperation energy is not attractive to people.
Very off-putting.
In dating or to people in interviews.
Yeah.
So that's not going to actually serve you. So knowing the difference between what you need and what maybe just is a nice to have, helpful.
At least for now, because you can, again, like if you need a bridge, sometimes you can't get everything that you want right now, but your nice to haves now can in the future become non-negotiables. You can work your way up like that, but you might not be able to do that all in one fell swoop, all in one leap.
And this is leading actually right into another point I want to make, which is if you are looking for something, whether you're coming from desperation or not, maybe you don't actually need to leave right away, but you want something perfect. You want the perfect job. And I have had clients before who they will nitpick every job. They'll be like, oh, I like this part, but I don't know. It's a little further away than I wanted, or it's a little, like, I don't know if I like this particular thing. They're looking for their white knight in the form of a job. They want it to be their perfect everything. Yeah. And underneath of that is this desire that I want all my needs met in this space. And guess what?
Every single 100%, I don't want it to have flaws.
Yeah, that's not possible, first of all. You're never going to find that because everything inherently has its downsides. That's normal. All people have, there's no such thing as the perfect person who's never going to trigger you. No. And we don't expect that in relationships.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, no, people
do that too. They pick apart when they're dating, right? Or even their spouse, they'll pick apart things. That's true. Although I don't think we, on the whole, expect a person to be perfect. We just kind of want it.
Well, and I think that sometimes we're not being honest with ourselves about how high our expectations are. And so with dating especially. And so I think that what people are probably going to say to follow up on this is, okay, but how do you tell the difference between am I setting my standards really high, or am I like just being, maybe I just have high standards. What's wrong with that? That's kind of the pushback I am hearing in I have like an invisible sort of naysaying audience in my mind that I refer to in these types of conversations. And Rachel
and I will be the first people to applaud high standards.
Encourage high standards.
That's great. We want you to be discerning and we want you to have high standards and not settle.
For sure.
And high standards is different than seeking perfection, because seeking perfection is actually coming from a place of I'm scared of being disappointed, or I'm scared of if I can't get this need met here, what if I can't get it met anywhere? Or what if what I want doesn't really exist? So I'm striving for the thing that's going to fit all of my criteria. Yeah. There's this anxiety that comes from...
It's codependence.
It is. You're looking for something to meet and fill all of your needs and never trigger you.
Right.
And that doesn't exist, and that's not a healthy approach. So what's important is to say, what are the things that really matter to me? What are some values? What are some qualities?
What are things I don't want to negotiate on? Because my life will be... I think that when I say non-negotiables, I mean things that are non-negotiable to my satisfaction, that I don't want to go lower than this because I'll end up being resentful. That's a really good question in both job searching and dating.
Well, think about this in terms of dating. So if you're looking at a potential person you could date and you're like,
I need someone, good example.
I need someone kind and intelligent.
Oh, no, that's not
where I was
going to go with that.
But I don't necessarily need someone with brown hair. Like that hair color does not have any deep impact on your fulfillment in the relationship. Those deeper qualities that does have an impact on your fulfillment in the relationship.
Let's use my example, because hair color is not nearly as triggering as what I'm thinking. Because what I'm thinking is a real scenario in which a lot of people find themselves. One of my clients and I are so similar, and we both have struggled with this. And so we kind of laugh at our shared
plight.
Yeah. So what's the difference between I want to be attracted to someone and my standards are so high and I expect someone to be like really attractive and like that's not normal. That's not like they're never going to look like, you know, Sam Heughan from Outlander. Like that's never going to happen. At least not for me, who is not like Katrina Balfe from Outlander, who is a former supermodel or at least runway model. So, okay, so what's reasonable, you know? And like, I don't think it's right. And one of my clients gets so triggered by this too, and I'm with her. I don't think it's right to end up with someone you're not attracted to.
Well, dating is the one relationship in which you really need to be attracted to that person. Otherwise,
what's
just
the
a friend.
point? What's the point? So what I've kind of squared in my mind is that I can release my sort of nitpicky, like quote unquote, standards about what someone should look like or how tall they should be or what their hair color should be. All of that can go. But what's left is, am I attracted to them? And I don't know I don't know exactly what that means. And it leaves room for it to be for them to look different than I would have anticipated. But if I feel attracted to them, that's great. And if I don't have to convince myself that I should be attracted to them when I'm not. That's something I used to do all the time, is I'd be like, well, I'm not being realistic. My standards are too high, so I should try to convince myself to be attracted to someone. No, if you have to convince yourself, you should not have to spend the rest of your life with someone who you have to convince yourself to be attracted to. I wouldn't want to be the person who's convincing themselves to be attracted to me. No. Oh my God.
That's going back to our first point of just choosing someone and settling. Right. And not actually being happy with that.
Right. So the same goes for job searching. You should not have to convince yourself to be excited about it. You shouldn't be getting into it because you should be attracted to it or it should be attractive on paper, but it's just not. However, I think you can strike some of your nitpicky ideas of exactly what it should look like off and assume that if I'm excited about it and I'm really interested in it, even if it looks different than I expected, that's still a good sign and I can go with that attraction.
Yes. And recognizing that there's always going to be a certain percentage of qualities of a person or a job that you honestly probably wish you could change.
Sure. I would say at least 20%. I mean, like an 80-20 mix is probably fine.
Yes.
You're not going to get 100% of your needs met everywhere. That's codependent. But 80% is a very healthy, fair, high number. And 20%, they're going to have flaws. Or they're not going to be able to meet your need. And that's where you go get those needs met elsewhere. But if it drops much lower than that, I think that's where you start having just plain old compatibility problems.
Exactly. So you don't have to find perfect, and you also don't have to settle. You can find like a good solid 80% of what you're looking for. And that's fantastic. That doesn't mean that you're settling, and it doesn't mean that you have too high standards.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about interviewing and first dates.
I really like to compare these two because I think people approach both of these wrong. I think mostly people go on first dates and interviews really, really hoping the other person is going to like them.
And trying to impress them.
Being on their best behavior and trying to ask the right questions and sound interested and say what they think is going to make the other person like them. And when you think about the purpose of both of these things, that makes zero sense because the purpose of a first date and the purpose of an interview is to determine, is this a match?
Yes.
So if you are just caring about what they think, you're missing a whole half of the equation, which is, what do you think about them?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's a part of whether or not this is a match. And most people don't even really think about that
They
part.
think about that more in dating, I think. I think they understand, I should be figuring out how I feel about them. But they also slip into trying to be impressive or trying to kind of be on their best behavior. In interviews, people don't even realize, it's never even occurred to them that it's just as much their job in an interview to discern, do I like these people? Are these people a good fit for me? As opposed to, oh, I have to try to get this job and I have to be impressive. And no, you don't.
Mostly people, even the part of the interview where they turn the tables and ask what questions you have for them, most people are trying to come up with questions that just make them look good.
Right.
Like, no. This is the part where you get to ask them the things you want to know about them.
Mm-hmm.
And get some of your questions answered too, because this is a two-way street. And so when you start thinking about interviewing and dating as, are we a match? A couple of things shift in the foundation of that, which is, I don't go in so nervous saying, do you like me? I go in curious and just feeling it out. Okay.
Right. I'm neutral.
What do you think?
I'm neutral. I'm not trying to go too much at you, and I'm not trying to run away from you. I'm just there, and I'm like, let's see what this is about.
Curiosity is so much more helpful than trying to be impressive. It also has you ask the real questions that you really want to know.
Yeah.
Not just things that sound good on paper. And it helps you recognize if they don't choose you or if you don't choose them, that's not a reflection of either of you. It's just not a match.
It's not compatible. Move on.
That's fine. Doesn't have to be personal.
Not everyone in the world has to want to marry you, and not everyone in the world has to want to hire you.
Right.
And that's good for you. You definitely don't want to be that popular.
You don't need multiple jobs and multiple husbands simultaneously all the time. That's way too many.
You couldn't handle that.
But I also recognize as we're talking about this whole, is it a match? Is it not a match? It's easy to say, oh, just come at it from curiosity and don't take it personally. But both of these things, dating and job searching, are some of the most vulnerable experiences that you can put yourself in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to face all of your deepest fears and insecurities, then start dating or start looking for jobs. Because you're going to see all of the reasons why, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough in this way, or they're not good enough and I'm never going to find what I want, or am I likable, or am I experienced enough?
Am I smart enough? Are they smarter than me? Is that a problem? Like,
it's just,
every one of your inner critic thoughts will come up.
Gosh, it's crazy. And so it's important to be a little kind to yourself through this process, because you know really what you're doing when you put yourself in either of these situations is say, I'm putting myself out there and I'm going to be rejected.
Yes. Eventually, if you're doing either of those, someone's going to reject you.
Someone's going to reject you. And we all know this on some level, which is why everyone avoids this. Everyone's like, I don't want to put myself out there. That sounds so scary.
Does everyone avoid dating? I feel like a lot of people are not avoiding dating.
Well, people don't like it. People complain about dating and people complain about job searching.
Well, and I think the people who are often doing it, even though they don't like it, well, I think a lot of people doing it are doing it from a numb place. Job searching and dating.
I agree.
The only way they can tolerate it in the unconscious way that they're doing it is in a numb kind of like, I'm just swiping and I'm not thinking. You know, I'm just kind of zoned out, and I'm not actually being vulnerable.
Yes, I think that's right. I think that's
right.
Where people
If you do dating and job searching in the right way, it will be a lot harder because you have to be real and vulnerable, and you can't try to people please, and you're not seeking approval. You're just being yourself. And that's what can be hard, is you're going to be rejected for who you are.
Yeah, essentially, you are coming to the table and saying, hi, this is me. This is what I'm all about.
Do you like it?
Do you like it?
Someone's going to be like, nah.
And we all know this. So it's so vulnerable. And so just, if you're procrastinating, if you are having a lot of inner critic thoughts come up when you go to job search or date for that matter, just know that's normal. This is if you're doing it right, this is a really raw and vulnerable and exposed experience. And the point is to just remind yourself as many times as you can that I'm just looking for a match. And if it's not a match, it doesn't have to be anything wrong with me.
Yeah. And
two people can be fantastic people, or a person in a job can be fantastic in isolation, and they're just not a match. And that doesn't have to reflect poorly on anyone involved.
This is giving me another thought, which is that you will inevitably maybe be big time disappointed. not just rejected like by someone and then get over it 2 days later, but you might be like you might get like to the 4th round of interviews for an ideal company and then not get hired. Or you might find someone who just like excited the shit out of you and you went on like 5 dates and then they ghosted you. Those things will likely happen to you in some way or another in both of these processes. So what that means is that not only do you not make it about you, like Kristen just said, but you have to see that as evidence that you're getting really close to the ultimate attainment of your goal. And a lot of people don't see it like that. They think I got so close and then I failed and now I'm back at square one. No, the way I see it is that if you got that close to your dream thing, that wasn't your dream thing, but you're really, really, really close to getting your dream thing because you came within spitting distance of it.
Or that was one of your dream things and there probably are a lot of them.
Yeah, right.
And so if you got that close to one of them, you're going to hit one of them.
It means you're in kind of like the orbit of the right thing. You're you're not off in left field. And that should be a good sign.
Doesn't mean it's not still disappointing. It doesn't mean it's not going to sting, but you shouldn't take it as, oh my gosh, I'm all the way back at square one. No. You've made huge strides.
Yeah. This has been a hard one for me. You remember last summer?
Yeah.
When some dude who my friend was trying to set me up with, she's going to laugh because she's definitely going to hear this episode and she's going to be like, I can't believe he did that to my friend. No, I mean, seriously, I'm glad that it didn't work out because it was just like such an obvious no. But like, I was like, how dare he? Like, I don't take it personally. I'm like affronted for myself. You know what I mean? Like, how dare someone not reach out to me? But like, and at first it annoyed me, but then, I saw it as like, oh, but that's kind of cool is that like this person had a lot of qualities that I was like, that on paper was like awesome and exactly what I would have wanted. And it just wasn't, it just didn't work out. And there wasn't really, a connection clearly. I could get into the story, but I won't. And that's fine. It means I just got like really close. Or I was like, it was kind of like almost like a pat on the back from the universe. Like, hey, you're doing a good job. See, like this is a lot of the qualities you're looking for in one person. It's just not quite there yet.
Yeah. And I think that what helps in holding on to that mentality is recognizing there's not just one dream job and there's not just one perfect person for you either.
No.
There's a lot of great people out there and there's a lot of great jobs. And so it doesn't have to feel like, I found the thing I wanted and then it rejected me.
Well, can we also add you can't mess up the right thing?
Yes.
That if someone's really like your future partner or your ideal job, you can't mess it up. You can't go into an interview and bomb it so badly that people don't want to have you back. Even if you're weird, they might be like, you know what? I don't know. I just kind of I was vibing with that girl. And yeah, she kind of did a weird thing in the interview or on the date, but like that kind of intrigued me or something.
I had a client who had a phone interview with a dream company and she came back. We talked right after the interview and she told me, I was so awkward. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how awkward that was. I'm so embarrassed by how that went down. Mm-hmm. And it was like my dream company and I just felt so weird the whole time. We didn't jive. And a week later, she got the job offer.
Right, exactly.
So you can't screw it up.
You can't miss the right thing.
Also,
the right
your
thing
interpretations are going to not be always accurate.
Yeah, I mean, just know that you're the one in your life with the worst, most inaccurate story about yourself.
If you thought it was super weird and awkward, you might have been the only one who thought that.
Well, and often the other people, especially on a date, are thinking that too. And so it's just, they're not focusing on how weird you are. They're focusing on, oh my God, I'm so weird. Or I'm being...
Again, it's bringing up everyone's insecurities. So everyone's just focused on all their own flaws.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about boundary setting and like setting the tone. This is just my bread and butter. I fucking love this topic of conversation. Setting the tone for how people treat you in dating and in job searching. So this is the call out I meant to give to my former client in Australia.
She's getting
you know who you are. My Aussie client. So she emailed me and was like, okay. Oh, well, okay. She was the same one who was like, I need a job. I email her back. I kind of set the tone. We give her some tough love. She's like, at first I hated your response. And then I was like, no, you're right. And she got on board and she was like, I'm going to chill for a few days and just like not focus on this and do some soothing stuff. Less than 2 days later, she's back in my inbox. She's like, okay, well, I got a job offer. But she was like, the company is really interesting. I feel like I like the mission. It seems like it could match a lot of my non-negotiables, but they said that they liked my application so much that they want to offer me or consider me for a full-time job, and I only applied for a part-time job. Now, they say that their hours are very like 9 to 5, so like I can still do my business on the weekends and evenings. And he said there are other people at the company who do that. So he's trying to reassure her that like, you don't have to give up all of your freedom to come work for us. We're not going to like work you more than like 40 hours a week or whatever. But so there was like some green flags, but then there were some red flags. And some of the red flags were that they were like, we don't want a high turnover at this company. We want people who want to be with us long term. So can you commit to this job? And if you commit, can you commit to like a long-term relationship? She had never been in an interview with these people. And they're asking her over email, can you commit to a long-term position? And she's like, I don't know what to do. I feel like, this is a good opportunity, but at the same time, I'm not sure that what if I get in there and I don't like it? And I was like, whoa. This guy is chatting you on Tinder and he's asking if you're open to marrying him. He's like, I got an engagement ring. Can I give that to you? Can I mail it to you before we have our first date? And you've never been on a date. That's weird. Now, it's a little weirder in the dating analogy. Obviously, it's more extreme. But it's not dissimilar to someone trying to, like, way speed up the timeline and you're not comfortable with it.
It's like on the first date, someone is trying to ask, so when do you think maybe we could try to think about moving in together? And you're like, wait, what's your last name?
Right. No. And so people who are trying too hard and too fast to speed up a timeline, I think that's a red flag in dating and in jobs. It's like, why are you that desperate? What's up with you that you feel like you can't just sit back and relax and like allow this process to unfold? That's weird. And so I was like, this isn't ruling them out, but you need to respond with some clear boundary setting. So you need to say something like, and she did end up communicating this to them. She said something like, thank you for considering me. I am open to discussions about this being full-time versus part-time. And I am open to talking to you more about what you're looking for in a long-term employee. And I'm not comfortable committing to anything until I've had an in-person meeting with you.
Sure, and got to ask some questions and got a little clarification on what the role is.
Right. And so they came back and they were like, they said she said they gave kind of a non-answer, but that there was a vibe of like, okay, yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of other people applying for this. So kind of like trying to make it seem like, she's almost being maybe a little bit difficult for setting boundaries, or like, well, there's other people who are just going to snatch this up without asking questions. So
we want the long-term person here who doesn't ask any questions about what they're getting into long-term.
Right. So I was like, their vibe is a little needy, a little desperate, a little insecure, but like fronting as cocky. And that's what cockiness is, insecurity. And so I'm like, what are they not saying? Because I feel like if they're if there's nothing going on behind the scenes and it's all well and good and everything's great, then this vibe is not something you're going to be picking up on. And so I think that this was a great test for her. And this can happen in dating too, of are you willing to respect yourself? Because the respect you demand, and demand doesn't have to be actually saying, I demand respect, but it's in the way you communicate. It's in the boundaries that you set. Your message is, I respect myself and I'm expecting you to do the same. And if you can't, then this is just not going to work. And that's great. If people can't respect you, awesome. They've just showed you exactly who they are, and move on. You don't want to work for them and you don't want to date them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have another example of her? I guess that was kind of an example of having people teaching people how to treat you, essentially. I think that
Oh, I hadn't thought of another example directly. No, but
that is a way of teaching people how do you treat you. Instead of you setting the ground rules of how this is going to go down, and I just go along with that. Instead, it's like, no.
You set the ground rules.
I'm going to be a decision-making partner in this process. Mm-hmm. And that's how this is going to be from the beginning and long-term. And if that's not cool with you,
And I think more people know that in dating, but there are a lot of people who are not setting any boundaries and they are just kind of codependent, kind of insecurely attached, excited about anyone who shows interest in them and not even wondering, am I interested in them? Are there any red flags here? But in job searching, it happens a lot more often because there's this more common mentality of I just need to impress people. And it's about how I look to them. And the reverse is not something we think about. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to think of an employer as a person you were dating. Is the way that they have behaved throughout this process reflective of a good character? And so I do have another example because I'm talking myself into an example. I had a lot of clients say something like they were late to the first interview. Like the employer was late.
The employer was late?
Yeah. I've had that happen a couple of times. And I'm like, if someone's late to a first date and they don't give you any heads up, you know what I'm not saying if they
traffic happens.
Sure. Right. But and if they're communicating with you, then that's one thing. But someone was I sat there for 15 minutes waiting for, and nothing happened and I didn't know what to do. And then eventually they got on and they were sorry, different day. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's completely a red flag because things like that can happen. But if that's part of a larger pattern of, are they reliable? Are they communicative? Do they follow up their promises with action? Do they follow through? These are all things one should be looking for and expecting as a baseline in jobs, and relationships.
Yeah. If it would be a red flag on a date, then it should also be a red flag in a job interview or in the job application process. Mm-hmm. If it's taking weeks to hear back anything and nobody's giving, you're allowed to say, hey, what's going on here? Right. Just like you would after a date. Hey, hello, are we still...
if someone didn't reach out to me, if someone was ghosting me on, relationship-wise, I'd probably just be bye-bye. But dating or job-wise, I think it's more appropriate to follow up.
It is appropriate to follow up, but it still can give you a little bit of a pause. Wow, are they...
Well, sure. Yeah, it's right. It can be evidence that they don't have their shit together or that they're just not that into you.
Exactly. So I do want to talk a little bit, too, about what happens... Because I'm imagining all of the rom-coms that we all watched growing up that end with the wedding. It's now you get married and now it's happily ever after and everything's perfect and sunshine and rainbows.
Sure, all of my favorite Disney classics.
Exactly. And yet we all know that once you're in a committed relationship, that's not the end of the story. No, you have to keep working at that relationship, is keep putting time and energy and effort into that to keep it good. And I think that happens with jobs too. So if we're thinking about this even beyond dating and now into having a relationship with a job, I do have people who will get into a job and they're like, oh, it was so fun at first. And I'm doing all these things and I'm getting kind of bored. But then if you pry a little bit, they're not asking for interesting opportunities. They're not taking on any kind of initiative. They're not communicating their restlessness with their boss. Mm-hmm. They're
passive aggression going on, expecting people to read your mind.
Which that happens in both scenarios a lot.
I know.
A lot. So if once you get the job, it's not just you're good.
It should be stretching you in a good way. Any relationship should stretch you in a good way. It should bring out the best in you, but it should also afford you some challenges, good challenges.
Exactly. And it's going to be up to you to keep searching for how can I grow in this space and how can I communicate better and how can I look for the things that I appreciate instead of always looking at the things that are annoying to me. And just the same way as in a relationship, you don't always want to be focusing on your partner's flaws. You want to sometimes be appreciative of the nice things they do for you, and you want to try to communicate better. And the same is true in a job. So this is not going to be a magical solution to all of your problems. You're going to have to keep putting effort in, just like in any healthy two-way relationship. And just keep that in mind if you're in a role that seemed great at the beginning and maybe has gotten a little bit
maybe the magic
beige.
Wore off a little bit, or the honeymoon period ended.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're left with real life.
Right.
So what do you make of real life? And so I think this actually transitions nicely into the last point we had, which was breaking up with jobs and people. And just because we were just talking about it, the first point that came to mind is, how do you know, right, when it's right to walk away, either in a relationship or at least maybe you've been dating someone a while and you're just not, you're not sure it's going to go anywhere and you just feel like, okay, it's time, How do you know for sure in either of those instances? I think what we were just talking about with, I'm focusing on growing, I'm focusing on challenging myself and stretching. Am I being met halfway in that effort? So with an employer, that means, are they invested in your personal and professional development? Do they care as much about you as you care about them?
Are they communicating with you as much as you're trying to communicate with them? Because if you're over-communicating and they're under-communicating, that's not a match.
Are they open to feedback? Are they open to working with you as you get bored and you want to stretch and grow? Are they open to helping you challenge yourself? Are they receptive to feedback and all of that? That's the same in relationships.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking for the same things? Just like in a relationship, you need to be on the same page about where you're going.
Can we grow together long term?
But if they have some ideas about where they think you should go and you're not interested in your boss's role or you're not interested in whatever next ideas they have, then that's gonna come to a head at some point, and you're gonna have to recognize we want different things. We're gonna have to split ways at some point.
And a lot of people have a hard time, even when they know, I don't want to do this job anymore, I don't want to keep dating this person, especially dating, like not even getting into a relationship. It's more like we've been on a few dates and I'm just not feeling it. Like, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. And I think we do that with jobs too, where we're like, oh, I don't want to leave the people in a lurch, or I don't want to like let down everyone on my team.
There's so much guilt.
So much guilt. No one wants you pity dating them, and no one wants you pity employed either.
Also, that's kind of rude to them because that person could be dating someone who really wants to be with them.
Yeah, who thinks they're great, not just like they're tolerating them.
Yeah. And that job could have someone in there who really, really wants to do the job well and is bringing a lot of energy and ideas into that space versus someone who's just showing up and going through the motions and not really feeling it. You're not doing them a service. So I know it feels like there's a lot of guilt for leaving, and it might be uncomfortable because endings of things, breakups, whether you're breaking up with a job or a person,
they're awkward.
They're super uncomfortable. And
you're gonna hurt people's feelings, probably.
They're almost never totally mutual.
No,
someone
rarely.
wants out before the other person wants out.
Yeah.
And if you're the one who
has it a lot easier, they're just kind of like blowing up one person's life and the other person had no preparation for it and they were thinking about it for weeks or months, and then all of a sudden now you've got to grapple with that. Yeah, that can be hard on an employer or on the person, the breakup-ee, but let them go through that discomfort because it will help them get where they really want to go next. Bring in the right employee. Date the person who's actually really wanting to be with them.
You open up a space for someone who's going to be a better match.
Yeah.
For them.
Okay. How do we feel about that?
We kind of went through the whole life cycle of relationships.
At least the dating cycle. Yeah. I mean, I like it. I think this is an excellent analogy.
The only big difference that Rachel mentioned briefly earlier is that obviously most people need a job at any given time because your survival is dependent on that. You don't need a relationship. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And sometimes you need a bridge job, whereas you don't need a bridge boyfriend or girlfriend sometimes.
No, I am not that's one of the places I would diverge heavily. I think...
So we're not going to say they're perfect examples of each other all the time.
Rebound dating is something I find to be questionable. I think your intention...
Ethically questionable.
Well, I think, however, we've said this recently. If you go into dating and you know I don't want a serious relationship... I have a client right now who is kind of getting over a divorce. And so she's dating and she's very clear that her intention is, I'm exploring. I don't know what I want. I've been with the same person since I was literally a teenager. So... I'm deciding what I like and who I like. But she's being clear about her intention. So in a way, that's kind of a bridge.
Sure, that's true.
And so she's being upfront about that.
That's totally valid.
Yeah.
Because then people can opt in or opt out of what you're saying you're able to offer.
Now, I wouldn't be as forthright about, this is a bridge job in an interview. I might not say that. I might not recommend that level of honesty.
Unless it's like a contract position or something, in which case you can say, hey, this work's actually great for me because I'm bridging into the next thing. But yeah, maybe don't start with that in all bridge job interviews.
Yeah. And again, some people are probably going to be thinking, well, is it wrong to not say that and then bail after 5 months? We've talked about this before. I cannot remember on what episode.
We had a whole episode about the bridge job, but I don't know.
Maybe it's on that. I don't know. I'll look into it. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes if I find it. We have so many episodes. This is the problem, is that even me with my pretty great memory of all things Clarity on Fire cannot figure out what episode that was in.
If we can't, we don't expect you guys to.
I will say that I think that there's a gray area here when it comes to how clear are you about like, this is something I'm kind of doing for now, not forever. And I think it has a lot to do with the type of job, like, and or what their expectation is. Like, at least with my former client in Australia, they're very clear about what they want, which is they want someone long-term. Now, I think it's a little bit ridiculous of them to ask for that level of commitment with someone they haven't interviewed, but it's not ridiculous that they want that.
Or to share, that's what we're ultimately looking for.
Right.
And we're not expecting you to know that yet, but just know that's our intention.
Expecting her to know that is ridiculous.
That is crazy.
But having that desire is not. And so I think it has a lot to do with, how much time can I reason? I think if you're going to get into a bridge job, it is probably fair to have some sort of a idea of how long you'll give it. Like, I'll give it a year. And honestly, sometimes you don't know. And I think that's partially why I think you can go into bridge jobs honestly, is because you honestly do not know how long it's going to take to go from a bridge job to your ideal job. Who knows? It could land in your lap in 2 months and you might have to awkwardly quit, or it might take 2 more years, in which case it would be a natural conclusion. So I think you can go into bridge jobs honestly because you're not a psychic and you can't predict the future.
Right.
So, okay, that was a little bridge job tangent, but all relevant. Okay.
Well, tell us what you think, because I know that this has resonated with a lot of people, a lot of clients I've given this analogy to.
So many.
The job searching versus dating and
like, is there any facet that we didn't think of that you see similarities between dating and job searching?
Yeah, definitely share with us in the comments. We always link to where the episode lives on our site, where you can leave a comment. We would love to hear that. So just as a reminder, today is the first day that we are reopening enrollment for coaching. It's going to be today through March 31st.
Come hell or high water, we're going to be coaching people. I don't know.
You're going to be quarantined at home anyway. I might as well be talking to you guys and helping you through whatever craziness comes in the next few weeks.
In 30 Rock, which is one of the best shows. Like, it's so amazing. I haven't watched it in so long, but you gotta love Tina Fey. When Jack asks Tina, or Liz, her character, what use would you be in an apocalypse? And she's like, traveling bard. And I'm like, that's kind of, I feel like this is our use in an apocalypse, is helping people get through the apocalypse.
Yes. Keeping people sane and emotionally healthy as best as you can.
And on track, because it's very, very easy when you're scared and when you're rightfully triggered to go off the rails, maybe more than you need
to devolve into your fear.
Right, and into your most base instincts as a person, which is why people are getting into scuffles over toilet paper at the grocery store. One of my friends said that they saw someone yell at an old man at the grocery store.
Oh,
No. So we're here to, try to keep everyone mentally healthy and sane and to keep you focused on the big picture of your life, because things will return to normal. And I think that those of us who try to keep that in mind throughout this will be better off by the time that time comes. So anyway.
We can navigate this storm together. You don't have to do it alone. Yeah. And you can come in on the other side feeling like you didn't just completely go through a hurricane. Like, maybe you actually made some purpose out of this experience.
I mean, there are always people who come out looking really good after crises. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes there are people who invent miracle toilet paper. That might be a thing that happens. Now, necessity is the mother of invention. A lot of cool things are going to come out of this, and one of them could be you. So anyway, just if you want to talk, reach out. Go to the link in the episode description. You can also just go to clarityonfire.com and go to the Work With Us tab and click one-on-one coaching if that's easier. And you can scroll through there and read more about it. Everyone who does coaching with us gets access to well over 10 hours of content, which is kind of the structure. It becomes the structure of what we help you work through in coaching.
Yeah, we guide you through a process that we have done with many, many, many people over the years that we know works. And so you're going to be able to, which again, I think this might be good timing because you're going to have probably a little bit of extra time to devote to watching some videos, listening to some audios along the process of coaching if you're at home. That's when I try to sum up the way that our process works and I think why it works. It's because if you're a coach and you have a client sit down in front of you and you're like, what do you want to talk about today? My clients would be like, I don't know, you tell me. Or it would just be the problem of the day. It'd be the annoyance of today, not really the bigger picture of where I'm going. So our clients are the type of people who are like, listen, I trust that you know what steps I need to take and what I need to be thinking about when in order to help me get clear on, maybe why I'm stuck, how I'm in my own way, what I want, and then how to get there. And so it's kind of like they hand that, not the thinking and not the decision-making necessarily over to us, but the trust in the way that this process is going to unfold. And you don't have to know what you're going to talk about that day. Kristen and I know what's going to be the most helpful thing for you to focus on and when. And that lack of having to think about it is so nice. Just getting to show up and do the work, but not have to think about whether you're doing the right thing every week. I think we're all a little distracted right now anyway. So that's one less thing to worry about. Yeah. So we will be back. We actually are going to be back on Tuesday. It would generally be a week we skipped over, but we're going to come back. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but I figured because we're in a coaching enrollment period and also because the world is crazy right now and you might need some distraction and entertainment, we will come back on Tuesday with something. So we will see you then. See you then.